All right. You may not be aware of this because we're all busy and life's coming really fast at all of us, but we are only a month away from Easter. Can you believe that? So you should be planning what you're going to do with your family for Easter, but we have been planning what we're going to do here at church for Easter. And this year we're going to be doing 3 services. We're anticipating this will be the biggest Easter we've ever had, primarily because it's not on spring break this year. So most of you will be in town, okay? And because of that, we're going to be doing 3 services again. They're all identical services. Did you hear that? They're all identical because somebody's going to ask me later. I've said it 3 times now. They're all identical services. We're going to do one on Friday night, Good Friday at 6 p.m. Our preschool and our K through 5th will be open on Friday night so the kids can experience that. And then 2 on Sunday, 9 and 10:30, just like we always have. And we would love for you to be a part of one of these. We'd love for you to invite some friends and family members who aren't normally going to church, but this is one of those times where they're thinking we should probably go to church somewhere. Just invite them to come sit with you. If you're wondering why are we doing a Friday night, because we're going to need room on Sunday, okay? So if you, especially at this service, if you're free and want to come Friday night, come on, that'd be awesome, because this service is the biggest service of all 3 of them. If you can't do Friday night, but you want to come at 9 o'clock and have a little bit of elbow room, you might have a little bit of elbow room, so you might want to do that. But if you can come at 10:30, just come on, it's fine. We're going to make room for everybody. We're really excited about this, and I'm excited about a new series we're kicking off today that's going to lead us all the way up to Easter. This series we're calling Revolutionary. We're going to be talking about the empowering invitation of the cross. And you're like, I don't even know what that means. Well, that's my job, okay? So we'll explain that over the next few weeks. But what we're going to talk about as we go through the series is a temptation that is only relevant and practical to those of us who have chosen to follow Jesus. So for those of you who you're not sure yet or you're kind of resistant, you got your reasons, right? But you're not there where you're like, yeah, I'm a follower of Jesus. That is perfectly fine. We are so glad you're here. We built this place for you. And the thing I want you to know is you may be in the most advantageous position of anybody, because this is one of those series you can sit back and you're going to find it interesting, you're going to find it helpful, it's going to be good information, but you can sit back and go, this doesn't apply to me. And you may be the happiest people in the room, because what we're going to talk about the next few weeks is an extremely challenging way of life. But the only reason I'm talking about it is because I would suggest that it's also a much better way of life. But in order to get there, you have to be aware of how to navigate around this temptation that is so real and relevant to so many of us. And I think this temptation explains to a large extent some of the emotions that we tend to feel at different points in life. And for some of us, we go through entire seasons where we feel these emotions. Emotions like disappointment. You've been here and you felt that. Disappointment maybe because things didn't turn out the way you want them to. Disappointment because you didn't get as far as you hoped to get, or you didn't achieve what you hoped to achieve. Disappointment in those seasons, you get all these nagging thoughts of, well, if only. You ever been here? If only I'd done this, if I only had done that differently. We've all been there. We know what it feels like when those thoughts start to pop up. This temptation we're going to talk about may just be at the root of a lot of those thoughts you have. It's also at the root of discontentment. The discontentment that a lot of us feel because we're just not yet where we want to be in life, or the discontentment we feel in some cases because we got where we always wanted to be, and then we're like, well, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And so then you're trying to figure out, well, what am I missing? What should I be doing? And you're nagged with all the thoughts around, well, it's just not enough. Like, it's not enough, fill in the blank, X, Y, Z. Again, we've been here. We've done this. This is a temptation that's at the heart and the root of so much of that. And it's a temptation that Jesus himself faced early on in his public ministry. It was at a time when he was physically, mentally, emotionally exhausted. And Matthew, who was one of Jesus' friends, who's one of his 12 disciples, Matthew wrote a biography of Jesus' life, and he tells us about when Jesus faced this temptation and how Jesus navigated through it. He says that it happened, and some of you will be familiar with this story. It happened after Jesus had been fasting. He hadn't eaten anything for 40 days. And then Matthew tells us that the devil came and he tempted Jesus with 3 specific temptations. Now I have to hit pause real quick, because depending on where you are and what you believe, I always get a lot of reactions when I bring up the devil. Some of you are on the end where you're like, okay, you've already lost me because I'm not buying into the fact there's a devil. Okay, that's fine. I understand that. The only question I would ask you to consider is, if there is no devil, how do you explain all the unexplainable suffering and evil that we see in the world? Because something is the source. Someone is the source. So you got to come up with an answer for that, and maybe you're smart enough to do that. But on the other end of the spectrum, whenever I talk about the devil, is a lot of us, most of us who are Jesus followers or Christians, would call ourselves Christians. We tend to have a unique response to this, and maybe it's just me because I'm a pastor. People get weird, like, they start talking to me and they feel like they have to talk about Bible stuff, and I'm like, we can talk about sports. But they're like, no, so they want to talk about Bible stuff. So anyway, they find out and they start talking to me, and real quick they'll be like, oh, man, I tell you what, the devil's just been after me a lot lately. And I'll tell you what I think, and I don't say because I've been told it's rude if I say it out loud. But it's safe here, so I'm going to say it, all right? The thing that I think is when they're like, oh, the devil's been after me a lot lately, I'm like, no, he hasn't. You're not that important. That's what I think. Now you see why I was told not to say it, right? I'm not that important either, okay? Now, here's what I mean by that. Like, a lot of Christians think the devil's kind of like God. And what I mean by that is they think the devil is in all places and all times. So anytime anything goes bad in their life, they're like, well, the devil's after me. And I'm like, that's just called life. But anyway, they think that's the case. The devil cannot be all places at all times, okay? He can only be one place at one time, which is why I say out of all the places he could be and all the people he could pick on, I don't think it's you. I don't think it's me. But maybe you're more important and a bigger deal than I realize. So anyway, the point is Jesus was that big of a deal. And so the devil showed up personally to try to tempt Jesus with 3 different temptations. And I just want to show you the third one. Here's what Matthew said happened. He said, again, the devil took Jesus, to a very high mountain, and he showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. Can you imagine? You just got to use your imagination for a minute. Can you imagine how this must have felt? What it must feel like to see all the kingdoms of the world with all their power, all their glory, all their splendor, all their riches. I don't know how this happened, okay? Don't ask me, I can't explain it. But somehow, some way, Jesus was able to see all of that at one time. And I was trying to think about how to relate this to us, so where we could get a glimpse of what that must have felt like, and I couldn't come up with any good ways. This is the best I could come up with. Some of you get a glimpse of what this would have felt like because you're car people. Don't raise your hands. I already know who you are because you're the ones who always ask me, when are we paving the parking lot? Because your car got dirty. I understand. Just write a check for $450,000. I'll have it done this week, okay? Otherwise, wash your car. That's all I can tell you. So I pay for a lot of car washes before I get to $450K. But anyway, if you're a car person, you're going to kind of get this. Because if you've ever had one of those moments where you walked into a showroom, when the lights are set just right, and there was your dream car sitting under the lights, and it was shiny, and it was clean, and that smell that only new cars have. It was there, and you had this moment inside of you where it's just like, you were just in awe and wonder, okay? Or if you're a boat person, some of you are boat people, and you go over to the boat show at CFSB Center, and you start walking through, and you see all of those nice, expensive, shiny boats, and you're like, I've got to get out here before I mortgage the next decade of my life away, because it's just calling you, okay, you kind of understand. Or some of you are house people, you know who you are. You like to go on those home tours that real estate agents do. And I know I got a lot of real estate agents in the room. I'm not trying to get in trouble. I hope you guys sell a lot of houses. But home tours are the worst idea. You should never go on one of those. And I'll tell you why. Because you're perfectly content until you walk into somebody else's house. And the kitchen is amazing. And you see this fridge that talks back to you and orders your groceries for you. You're like, I had no idea, And then you look at the back, the whole back of the house is nothing but glass. And it's got this beautiful view. And they got those shades where you just punch the button. It's like, and it automatically does it. And the ceilings are as tall as sequoia trees in that house. And you're just like, this is amazing. I'll tell you what happened. You know what happens if you've ever done it. You walk back into your house and you're like, I'm getting a little claustrophobic in here. Like, somebody lower the ceilings, You're so frustrated because your fridge only keeps your food cold. You're like, honey, we need a new fridge. She said, I think that's the whole point of having a fridge. Just keep it cold. So anyway, you know the discontentment that creates, right? But you also know when you're in one of those moments where whatever speaks your love language is speaking your love language. And you're like, oh, that's just amazing. Okay, that's just like, you take that and multiply it by 1 million. And that's got to be what it felt like. To see all the kingdoms of the world with all their glory, all their riches, all the power. It's all right there. You can view it all at once, however that worked. And then, with that emotion taking place inside of Jesus, Satan decides to set his trap. And he says, all this, I'll give you, Jesus. It can all be yours. Now, if this is all there is to it, you know what you call this? You call this the opportunity of a lifetime. That's what you call it. I mean, imagine how much good you could do if you had all the kingdoms of the world at your disposal. And some of you try to act pious and humble, and you say, no, I would turn that down. You're a liar. That's what you are. You would not turn that down. Have you ever turned a pay raise down? I didn't think so. You ain't turning a power raise down if you won't turn a pay raise down, okay? So all of us, if we were in that situation, would go, yeah, if that's all there is, if you're just offering it to me for free. But it wasn't exactly for free. This was, and Jesus was able to recognize this was a temptation disguised as an opportunity because there was a trade-off. Satan goes, all this I will give you, Jesus, if you'll bow down and you will worship. You will choose to give highest value and priority to me. Now, I don't want you to miss this because this is way more tempting than it may sound to you. Because this was Satan's way of saying, Jesus, isn't this exactly why you came? You came to be recognized as the rightful king of all the kingdoms of this world. That's why you're here. I know why you're here. And I'm just telling you there's a shortcut to get there. I'm telling you, you can avoid the cross. You can skip it entirely. And I'll just give to you exactly what you came for. All you have to do, just a little trade-off, all you have to do is just choose to bow a knee and acknowledge me as the highest value in your life. And you can avoid all the suffering, all the loss, all the pain. You win. And it doesn't hardly cost you anything. This was the temptation. And you may know how the story goes. Fortunately for all of us, Jesus saw right through it. And he simply looked back and said, away from me, Satan. I'm not buying it. I'm not taking the bait. I am not doing it. Because what you are offering me is actually not any better than everything else in this world. What you're offering me is just more of the same. See, Jesus turned it down because Jesus immediately knew, no, what you're offering me, that's not my kind of kingdom. Jesus didn't show up just to reintroduce a kingdom that was like all the other kingdoms of the world. A kingdom where it is top down, and whoever has the might is right. Whoever has the power and the money gets to make all the rules. Whoever's at the top gets to extract value from whoever's below them. Jesus is going, that is not the kingdom I came to introduce. You're trying to give me all the kingdoms of the world, but you're trying to tempt me to win it the way everybody else in the world wins their power and their riches and their might. The way everybody else wins their kingdom. But I didn't show up to introduce another win-lose kingdom into the world. I didn't show up to introduce a kingdom. It's all about image management. It's all about collecting as much for myself as I possibly can and then protecting it. Jesus is saying, no, I'm the king who came to reverse the order of everything. I came to introduce a brand new kingdom and a brand new way of life into this world. And oh, by the way, I can't do that by giving highest value to you, Satan. After all, Jesus says, it is written, you should worship, you should give highest value to the Lord your God. You should serve him only. And then the temptation was over. Now, here's what I don't want you to miss about this. The whole reason I want to bring this up is because there is a tension in this temptation that all of us struggle with. But it is so common, I don't even know that we recognize it anymore. You see, the tension was this. If this world is all there is, if this life is all there is, or if the life that we are currently living, in the world we're currently living it in, if that's what actually matters most in our existence, then Jesus was a fool. Because if this life is what matters most, then by all means, you should do everything you can to win and gather as much as you can and accumulate as much as you can and win as much as you can at the expense of people around you, because there's only so much time and there's only so many resources. So you should get all you can, because if you don't, somebody else is going to. They're going to win and you're going to lose. If this life is a zero-sum game, which is how most of us think about it, Jesus was a fool right here. He should have taken all the kingdoms of the world for himself. But he did not. Because he did not believe This life is all there is to life. And he did not believe life was a zero-sum game. So Jesus actually introduced something that his earliest followers referred to as the way of the cross. Now, for those of us who grew up in church, if you heard this, you might think, oh, this is something to do with a salvation prayer, like I'm supposed to pray, and then everything's good between me and God, and my eternity's taken care of, and that was really simple to do anyway because I have no control over my eternity, so I'll definitely trust you with that, and then I'm going to go on about my life. No. This is not what he was referring to at all. As he introduced a new kingdom and a new way of living into this world, he was introducing a way that was diametrically opposed to what is natural and normal in our world. The way of the cross was a way of life. It was not a way of believing. This was not, oh, believe in Jesus, you go to heaven when you die. No. He was saying, I'm inviting you to follow me, to follow Jesus, to walk with him in this life. I'm teaching you and inviting you to embrace a way of life, and this is the hard part, that is a lose-win life, not a win-lose life. In other words, you can read this in the biographies of Jesus for yourself. You can read this in the letters of his earliest followers that are in our New Testament. Over and over again, Jesus was saying, I am introducing a new value system and a new way of living to this world that they had never seen before. But it is not a win-lose zero-sum game. I am not trying to show you a way of life where you will win faster and win bigger and win better. I am introducing you into a way of life where you are going to lose, but by losing, you are going to win. And all of us competitive people scratch our heads and go, that's impossible. And some of you are going, I don't even know what that means. And I get it. You shouldn't. You should walk out of here with a lot of questions today because I'm not going to explain to you what this means until next week. That's the worst pitch I've ever made, by the way. You want to learn how to be a better loser? Come back for the rest of this series. I mean, none of us want to be a loser. But I'll give you a little hint. I'll give you one little example. When Jesus invited us to forgive, it's a classic example of this. Because when somebody hurts me, you know what winning feels like? Winning feels like getting revenge or holding a grudge. And that's what's natural to all of us. That's what winning feels like. And I'm no different than you. I'm competitive and I want to win, which it means I pick the worst line of work ever because I'm not supposed to compete against anybody. But believe me, there are times. Well, I was in a conversation a few years ago with somebody, and they were telling me, I'm not even going to go into details. They were telling me something another church had done that was related to us, that was completely out of bounds. And here was my response. I'm just being transparent. My first response was, I know what we're going to do. We're not going to do anything. We're just going to move on. I said, but if you want to know what I want to do, I want to crush them. That's what I want to do. And I'm pretty sure we can crush them. You're like, that is terrible. Only if you're a loser. Only if you're a loser. Winners want to crush them. I'm just telling you that because I'm no different than you, okay? You know what forgiveness feels like? Forgiveness feels like losing, doesn't it? No, I want to get back. I want to get even. I want to get revenge. I want to hold a grudge. That feels like I'm winning. Forgive them? It feels like I'm losing. It feels like I'm letting them off the hook. And Jesus goes, exactly. I'm inviting you to choose to lose. Because when you forgive, that's how you actually win. That's how you're healed. That's how you can let go of the hurt. That's how you can move forward and not carry any baggage with you. No wonder we have such a hard time trusting Jesus enough to actually do what he says. Because everything he tells us to do feels like a loss in the short term. And he goes, I know. But I'm asking you to trust me because I am inviting you into a better way of life where if you do what feels like losing on the front end, you will win far bigger and far better on the back end. but you got to trust me. And most of us are like, I don't want to feel like losing. So we choose the win-lose approach to life, not the lose-win way of the cross. So, over the next few weeks of this series, we're going to unpack what this looks like. And it is hard to do. It is hard to practice. But it just might change everything for the better for you if you figured it out. So here's all I want to leave you with today. I just want you to pay attention. I want to invite you to be aware this week of what perspective you have of life that is driving you to act, react, and choose and decide the way you do. In other words, are you operating from a mindset of a lose-win way to live is actually the better way to live? Or are you like so many of us and you're going, no. This is a win-lose game. It's a zero-sum game. If they win, I lose. So I can't give them the opportunity. If you do that, it's going to lead you down a very different path. It's going to drive you to make very different decisions. You are going to end up. You're going to end up doing what everybody else in this world does. And you will fall for the temptation of living as if, even if you don't intellectually believe this, practically you will live as if this life is all that matters. It's what matters most. And you got to grab everything you can to win. But you will not end up winning in the end, because you will not end up with the better life that Jesus introduced and invited us to follow. How in the world did this ever catch on? I mean, this was Jesus' pitch. I came to bring a new way to live. Oh, by the way, it's all about you choosing to lose. How about you join me? And here we are 2,000 years later. And it's still going. How is that possible? It's only possible because those earliest followers of Jesus actually discovered it was a better way of life. And because they became convinced that what they could see in this life was not all there was to life. And if you find yourself pushing back, going, I just don't see how losing ever leads to winning, I get it. But I would remind you, God in human flesh showed up on this earth, and Jesus chose to live this way. This is why nobody believed he was who he claimed to be, as he's hanging on a Roman cross. Because God in human flesh, the King of the universe, the King of all kingdoms, never loses. You wouldn't ever expect him to lose. He can't end up on a cross. But Jesus chose to lose. And because of that, you won and I won, and we're sitting here today. Because of that, there's forgiveness and there's freedom, and we know we're unconditionally loved and accepted by our Heavenly Father, and we know we can bring everything that we've got, all the baggage, all the mistakes, all the sin, all the mess ups, all the past, that we can walk right into the light with all of it and give it to him, and he's going to love us and forgive us anyway. That's why we know that. Because he chose to lose. And by losing on the cross, he won. Won bigger than anyone ever expected. So maybe he's on to something. Maybe we should pay more attention to this than all of us naturally think we should. Maybe if we love winning and we're highly competitive people, maybe we've been playing the wrong game. And we're not winning like we could be. Maybe there is a lose-win, better way to live. We'll pick it up right there next week. Let me pray for us. Father, this is so counter to the way we think. It's so counter to the way we see things. So this week, would you just make us aware when we're in those moments and we're deciding, we're reacting, we're choosing what we're doing, but it's being driven by the perspective that's just natural for us to hold, that this is a win-lose, zero-sum game. And when we're in those relational conflicts, or when we're having those disagreements, or when we're in those moments where we can choose ourselves or we can put others before ourselves, just help us to see, oh, this is why this decision makes sense to me. And help us to consider whether maybe, just maybe, our whole perspective is skewed, and what it might look like and how it might change our lives. To trust you enough to do what feels like losing in the moment, so that we could win and experience your peace, your love, your healing, your forgiveness, your meaning and fulfillment and satisfaction and significance that you're inviting all of us into. That's a part of this better life. It's in your name we pray. Amen.